I'll tell you what, something like this makes a great little low-cost Game Pass PC, and I mean, anything at 1080p is going to be possible on this machine here, and some of the stuff you can even go up to 1440. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. If you're looking to put together a low-cost gaming PC, then this video might be for you. Now, I've been doing a lot of research, and if you're a regular viewer of the channel, we do a lot of these small form factor builds using these office PCs. But this one right here is definitely turning out to be one of the best so far, and with the prices on these PCs and the prices on the GPU we're going to be throwing in this rig, it's probably worth it to go ahead and put one of these together. Because when it comes down to it, this offers some amazing high and ultra 1080p gaming performance. If you don't mind dropping some of those settings down, you can go up to 1440p even with some of the newer AAA titles. And it all comes down to the GPU we're going to be using in this small form factor build. Now, before we get into it, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by URCD Keys. I've actually been using this site for a couple years now. They do offer Steam keys, Origin, Uplay. They even offer Microsoft applications like Office, but the main reason that I use URCD Keys is for their Windows keys. Right now, their Windows 10 Pro OEM key is $19.84, but if you use code ETA at checkout, you can get 25% off. And another great thing about buying from here is they do accept PayPal. I just did this build here. I need to activate Windows. I'm going to head over to my updates and security. We're going to go to activation. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Pro, but it's not activated. So I'm going to change product key. I'm going to paste it in here, choose next, choose activate, and Windows is now activated. We're ready to go. My warning is totally gone, and basically that's it. They'll email your code once your payment is processed, and that's basically it. If you're interested in picking up cheap Windows 10 keys for your new PC builds, I'll leave a link in the description. I opted to use an HP Elite Desk G4 because somebody had about 6 of them posted up for $120 shipped. This has a 7th gen i7 CPU. It came with 8GB of DDR4 and a 500GB M.2 SSD. Now, if you don't want to go with an HP, you can always pick up a small form factor Dell or Lenovo, but they are out there for around $120. You can actually bid them out for maybe even cheaper if you're just patient about it. Now, the first thing you want to do when you get one of these used office PCs is go ahead and clean it up. This one is really dusty compared to some of the other ones that I've purchased recently. Luckily, it does look like it was in an office setting and not somebody's house where they were smoking or where they had cats, so it's not horribly bad. A can of compressed air, or if you've got an air compressor or even a vacuum, will work really well to go ahead and get this out of there. But since these basically ran all the time in an office, we do want to replace the thermal paste on that CPU to try to keep those temps down. And yeah, I mean, we've got a little bit of blockage there with dust on that CPU cooler. So getting in there with a vacuum or even just pulling it off and kind of wiping it down, it's going to work out. But with this, I definitely want to replace that paste because I can guarantee you it's never been replaced on this PC. I used Noctua thermal paste, and that's because I've got a giant tube of it. But with a PC like this, I wouldn't mind using some cheaper stuff that I picked up on Amazon. As long as I've got some new thermal conductive compound on there, I think I'll be good to go. So first thing I need to do is go ahead and remove the cooler. And once I got that off, I can see that, yeah, this has been dried out for a little while. Basically, all of it's just stuck to the cooler itself. We don't have much left on the CPU. And of course, we want to clean the cooler and fan up. This one's pretty bad, but it's not as bad as I've seen in the past. And these will look like this. I mean, they're used PCs. There's really no way around it. But a lot of them do clean up really nicely with just a vacuum or some compressed air. Now, with this unit, we got 8GB of RAM. We also got that 500GB M.2 SSD, but we're not going to be able to game on the internal graphics with this Intel CPU. I mean, of course, some indie games will still run on it, but in order to really turn this into a gaming machine, we need to add a dedicated GPU. And for this, we're going to be going with the most powerful low-profile dual-slot GPU on the market, the RTX A2000. So these are coming in at around $250 used on Amazon right now, and it's well worth it. Performance is on par with an RTX 3050, and with some overclocking, you can beat that out. It's got 6GB of VRAM, and when you pick one of these up on Amazon, I'll leave a link in the description, it's going to come with a high-profile bracket. Unfortunately, that's the way they're selling them right now. A low-profile bracket is around $8 to $12 on eBay, but most of them are shipping from China, and it's going to take a little while to get in, so keep that in mind. A used RTX A2000 is around the same price as a brand new low-profile GTX 1650. And I completely understand why people don't want to buy used GPUs, but I've actually picked up 2 of these so far, had really good luck with them, and they outperform the GTX 1650 by leaps and bounds. Alright, so now that I've got everything cleaned up, I did want to add a little more RAM. This only came with 8 gigs. Most of the time, these will come with 16. You can get an 8 gig stick for around $10. This utilizes 2400 megahertz RAM. And now it's time to add the GPU. Now the only downside I've run into with the A2000 is the fact that I have to wait a while to get a low profile bracket shipped from China. I've ordered 2 of them and I think they'll be here next week. So I've just pulled the high profile bracket off. And I'm going to be using a piece of Paylite just to kind of keep this up. I mean, it's a very light card. I'm not going to damage it right now. And as soon as I get those brackets in, I can go ahead and add one to this rig. Now, all that's really left to do is a little bit of setup with the operating system. I'm going to go with Windows 11 Pro. Alright, so I've had this up and running for a little while now, and this is definitely a quick little system. I've done a little bit of testing so far, and I'm really happy with the performance this thing's putting out. And the main thing I was worried about going into this was the power supply in the G4. It only comes with a 180 watt. Now the CPU we have here is the i7-7700, so we've got 4 cores, 8 threads, up to 4.2 gigahertz, and this is a 65 watt part, but it can boost up to around 80 watts. So I'm thinking right there, 80 watts, and that's kind of an extreme load that we're going to be putting on the CPU itself. The RTX A2000 can only pull a maximum of 70 watts because it only uses power from the PCIe slot. We don't need an extra power adapter or anything like that. So in total, just right there from the CPU and GPU, we're at 150 watts and that's maxed out. But we still have to worry about the other accessories in the PC, like the fan and the M.2. But with everything included, kind of pulling max wattage that it can, which is not going to do that much, I'd say around 175 watts out of this unit. And I do have it plugged into a kilowatt meter, so by the end, we'll see exactly how much this thing's pulling at idle, while gaming, and under full load. But I got a feeling we're going to be under that threshold, and there is a company that actually makes a 300 watt power supply that fits in here. But with the way this is set up right now, while gaming, even at 1440p, we're not going to hit 180 watts with this unit. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into some gaming and see what this thing can do. First up, we've got God of War 1080p Ultra settings with no DLSS. We're getting an average of around 63 FPS. I could go ahead and turn VSync on, lock it at 60, and be totally content playing this all day. But you can always get more out of it by enabling DLSS. I'd say balanced would bring us up into the average of around 75, and if you want to go to performance, you could even hit 80s with the RTX A2000. Next on the list, Forza Horizon 5 1080p Ultra, no scaling going on whatsoever. We can get an average of 102 FPS out of this game. Very well optimized, and yeah, I mean, as you can see, not a problem to run this, and even on this rig at 1440p, we're going to get over 60 with it. Here's Street Fighter V, and I totally forgot to add the command to allow Afterburner to show up, and I haven't enabled the Microsoft overlay, but we're at 60 right now. I mean, we can max this out at 1080p, we could even go to 1440 with Street Fighter V. Moving over to Cyberpunk 2077, 1080p high settings, and with this one I did take DLSS to quality. We can get an average of 78 FPS out of this game. So yeah, I've had really good luck with the A2000 and Cyberpunk, especially using a little bit of DLSS. If you don't like using DLSS for some reason, medium settings, 1080p, get an average of around 73 FPS. Miles Morales 1080p high settings, DLSS set to quality. This is really all over the place and it's kind of the way the game is. I've tested this on a lot of different systems and on the street with the way we have it set up right now, we can get an average of 75 FPS, but up high here, we can get an average of around 98 FPS. Indoors, it's going to jump up even higher than that. Hi-Fi Rush 1080p Ultra 135 FPS. I actually just started playing this on Xbox and I'm going to kind of transfer my save over here to Game Pass. But it's super fun, definitely gives off Jet Set vibes, and something I really want to get into. GTA 5, 1080p, high settings, I got an average of 96 FPS. I knew this game was going to perform well, and I probably should have just taken it up to very high straight off the bat. We could definitely get over 60 with it, but if you're still into playing this game, which I personally love single player still, then you can run it on a low-cost rig like this all day long. And the final game I wanted to test was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I ran this a couple times with different settings. First up, we've got the recommended settings, which will net you over 60, but we can definitely get better performance out of it and make it look a little better given the resolution scale. So with the recommended settings, it actually scaled me to 720p. We got an average of 92 FPS and a low of 52. Not bad at all, but I wanted to see what we could do without DLSS, so I just went to the balance preset, 1080p, no DLSS, 87 FPS on average with a low of 54. So yeah, this game is really playable on this rig. Okay, so while I was doing all of my testing with this PC, I had it plugged into a kilowatt meter. That way I could monitor how much power is being pulled from the wall. Now this is total system power consumption. At idle, 37 watts. Average gaming, 138 watts. And the maximum that I could get this to pull while maxing out the CPU and GPU was 178 watts. So in that extreme test, yeah, we're getting really close to that 180 watt power supply constraint, but under everyday normal use and even 1080p gaming, we're nowhere close to that, and the 180 watt power supply is going to be fine in this unit. I know some people are going to ask, but I did want to show you how I have this GPU propped up. I've got some heat-resistant foam right here on the back side of the GPU, kind of just making contact there to hold it in. And lucky for me, the hard drive bracket actually has a little bit of a flexible arm on it. So I just kind of bent it down a bit, have a piece of foam on that, and it's just propping the GPU up. But as soon as I get that low-profile bracket, I can go ahead and add it. But you know, it will take a while to get one if you're thinking about building something like this. So yeah, overall, loving the performance this thing's putting out. And you know, I've actually always been a big fan of these G4 front plates. I don't think it's a bad looking PC. Obviously, when you get one, it might be a little scratched up, definitely going to be dusty, but you can kind of clean it up. Given the price point that you can put one of these together right now, it might make a lot of sense for some people who are looking for a good 1080p gaming rig. And picking up one of these used RTX A2000s at that $249 price tag, in my opinion, is well worth it if you're looking for the best low-profile dual-slot GPU on the market for these small form factor rigs. And pairing this up with a 7th Gen i7 really does a great job. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you're interested in putting something like this together, I'll leave some links in the description. You can pick most of this stuff up on eBay. Some people might be selling these RTX A2000s over there also, but I've had really good luck on Amazon. Plus, we've got that return policy over there just in case. If you've got any questions or if there's anything else you want to see running on this, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy seeing videos like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and think about turning notifications on so you know when I post the next one. But that's it for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.